I'd like to call this meeting over, please. Everyone join us in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to begin this evening by having our statutory session, and then following that we'll go into our regular session. So we've done that. So what we're going to do is set the stage for establishing our levy rates for the 2019-2020 school year. So in order to do that, we need to present those for public inspection. So could I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Mr. Wilkerson? Second. Mr. Baker seconded that. And Mr. Midkiff or Mr. Ellis, any comments about this that we need to make or anything?
These are so close to last year's. The estimates from the assessor's office, when I plugged the numbers in, I'm thinking it was within like $25,000 or something like that of what it was last year. So evidently the expectations are the same. Some of the classes changed, but some were increased, some decreased. It's kind of hard to follow whenever you look at it year to year. But the number, total projected $5.883 million, was just a little bit down from where we were at this time last year with the projection.
Now, Ray, as far as the rates themselves, are those the same as last year's rates?
Yeah, they're the same rates. Everything's set.
Okay, all right. Okay, as I said there, these have been approved, or will be approved here momentarily, and then those that would like to look at those may do it before we come back and finalize that for this school year. So could I have a motion then to put them out for public review? Or not a motion, is that an all yes vote?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry, that's the next thing here. Okay, now, we need to suspend action until we do that. Could I have a motion for that, please?
I'll move that.
Okay, Rowdy made the motion and Carol seconded that motion to suspend further action on this until April the 16th, 2019, when we'll finalize the levy rates for next year. Have a motion, is that all yes?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, thank you. Okay, having concluded the statutory meeting, let's move to our regular meeting for this evening. First, do we have anyone sign in tonight, Mr. Ellis?
No, sir.
Okay. We didn't have anybody sign in. Let's approve the minutes of the March 5th, 2019 meeting. Motion, please. Move. Mr. Curry? Second. Mr. Wilkerson? Okay. Now, we don't have anybody signed in. We do have a presentation tonight. Mr. Ellis, Finance Director.
We need to vote on further approving the minutes.
We just did that.
We didn't vote on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we've had a motion, Mr. Curry and Mr. Wilkerson second. Is that all, yes?
Yes.
Thank you all. If it's not on that next line down below, I've missed it, see. It's an extended line. Okay, now, we don't have any public comments, do we, Ray? I'm going to have to back up and slow down here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, we do have a presentation. Ray Ellis, the Finance Director, who's going to give us a finance update. I'm going to slow down and read very carefully. Right.
As always, I'll try to be brief. Sometimes I succeed in that, sometimes I don't.
We'll wait to see what happens.
If you look at the agenda on down, there's some stuff about some budget supplements. All that is, we got some more grants. It's like $733,000. A lot of it was Mr. King's, I can't remember the name of that grant, it's $633,000.
School improvement grant.
School improvement grant. So went ahead and put that in, so it's included. I'll put a little bit more detail in later on. We'll have a budget transfer from that. I just wanted to pass that on before I forget. I handed out before the meeting this cover sheet and everything. It's got a balance sheet. It was on the desk before you. Statement of cash flow and a balance sheet, and it's updated through the end of February. So I was supposed to do this a couple of weeks ago, and I had the flu. So we were going to look at January. Now we actually get to look at February. And just like I always said, remember I kept talking about the cash we had on hand. It bottomed out in February, just like clockwork. I mean, it was In fact, it got scary for 2 days. Last year it lasted a week. This time it only lasted 2 days. We fixed the problem. We drew down the money the right way, got the money in, state aid came in, it's back up to where I think right now we're about 3.2 million, so we're not at the 5 million we were at. So we're good.
We can breathe a sigh of relief.
Well, you all can always breathe. I'll take care of the problem.
All right.
I let Mr. Mickey know. I was like, man, just like I said, it bottomed out, and we got it back. When I say it bottomed out, the state investment money was low because we pull from there, and the state gives us our state aid into that account. Our federal grants, whenever we draw those down, they go into that account. We take from that account, we put it in City National for payroll, and we put in West Banco for AP. So everything comes out of that state investment. So that number went way down, but we had money for 2 payroll runs, and we had money for the next AP run, so we were in good shape. When I say it bottoms out and we get really low, we've taken care of all the other accounts. We just got to replenish that state account. So it always makes me nervous. This is, I think, my 3rd February, and 3 Februarys it happened. In fact, 3 years ago, I talked to Birdie about it. She says, yeah, it happens every February. So I don't know if other boards of eds have that problem, but obviously it happens. So, but we're good now. And at the end of February, we had 3.4 million. I think as of today, we're down to about 3.2, something like that. Look on the second page of that handout, it's got a cash flow statement. I have trouble doing these until we get into the spring months. For some reason, early in the year and into December months, this will never match, my cash will never match in the 2 areas. I'm not sure what happens, but in the spring, everything's fixed and everything balances. So in the spring months, we get this update with the cash flow. And all that tells you is where the money went during the course of the month. The revenues, the expenditures for each fund, and then if you look down at the bottom, it actually tells you the receipts and the disbursements for the state treasury, for City National, and for the First Century, which is actually West Banco now. That's on page 1. When you get to page 2, 3, 4, and 5, it's just a balance sheet for your information purposes only. But when you get over to page 6, that's where it starts breaking it down and comparing it to other years, and it's where I get my Weavis reports, and page 6 is the tax revenue for 5 years. When you look at that, it gives you up through February, but in March, the report total, it says 4.314 million for 18-19, which is this year, and it compares it to the last 4 years. But I always try to put a note in there is where we're at right now as of the board meeting. So, and I did that, and what happened, if you could see, we were $240,000 behind last year's numbers in collection. This is excess levy, this is our regular levy, this is all supplemental, this is back taxes, everything that we've collected. I think about the 10th of March, something like that. I went down to Mr. Meekip's office. I said, well, we can breathe a little bit of a relief because our tax check came in about $150,000 more than last year. Actually, about closer to $200,000. If we can have another one of those this month, for the month of, let's see, what is it, the 19th? If March's collection can be like February's was, I'll breathe a bigger sigh of relief because, all year long I told you we were down about $250,000 from last year. And we'd already cut the budget, so we weren't expecting that much, and we just couldn't get the collections in. But February's collection that we got in March was $750,000. I think last year's was $550,000, $570,000, something like that. Later on this month, we'll probably get a utilities check that's dispersed more or less through the counties, but it's from the state. And Guy Browning can't tell you how much it's going to be. He doesn't know until he gets the information and he disperses the money. And going back from what I've seen and what before me, when Birdie had her records, I think up through maybe 2013, something like that, those checks can fluctuate between $450,000 and $1 million. So you just don't know. So we hope that we're closer to the million, and if so, then I'll let you know about that. That'll help out. If it's low and March collections doesn't come in very well, then our carryover amount is just going to plummet because we're going to need that. just to have any kind of overage. So the bigger the next two checks are, well, actually it'd be 4 checks from the county. We hope that we surpass what we did last year, and we'll catch up to last year and the year before. So the rest of this is just information on expenses and, you know, how you want to look at the categories, you want to look at travel, if you want to look at the different programs. It's all built in there, just like I've given you in the past. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know. You can give me a call. But that's pretty much it. So our collections have done
One was
better.
interested in substitute costs.
I didn't look at that specifically.
What page that on?
Well, I don't know, that's why I was just curious. I was just glancing, I was just curious.
Probably,
I know you wouldn't know right off what page it was on. I'm just curious as to how
it's got to be by object code.
it was in relation to some of the past couple of years. It actually,
It's probably on page 19, 18 or 19. Professional subs, well, the way it's coded now,
okay, what is it on?
I'm on page 18. It's about 10 lines down for professional subs. And we're over where we were last year at this time.
Okay, okay, here, I see.
762,000.
For service subs.
You know, and I've had conversations with a lot of people here in this building, mainly Mr. Linville, Mr. Mikia. If we didn't have the high cost that we have associated with substitutes, our carryover would be phenomenal for such a small county.
Well, but that's true of every county, isn't it?
Well, I know, but you think about it, we're supposed to be getting 5.8 million if everything's collected for the regular levy and the excess levy next year. And we're paying out for service and professional subs over, I think it's $1.5 million last year, something like that. It may not, maybe we won't be up that high this year. Let's do February, so 3 months, I don't know. If it's higher than what it was last year at this point, so maybe we're back to $1.5 million. The state gives us $500,000 to do that, so we're looking at $1 million that comes out of our county cost. You know,
Well, that's
our
what I'm saying,
regular
that's
levy.
typical, or that's one of the gripes, I guess, that everyone has with the state of California, is that it doesn't really compensate you for what, you know, is realistic there. But as I go across here, Ray, am I correct here? Like in the professional subs this year, it's the 762 figure. And if I go all the way back to 14, it's 411. I mean, is it like almost,
Mhm.
not double, but
That's through
February.
reporting date of this, right?
Yeah, that's through February.
well, but
28th.
back, okay, in 14, is that 411,000 for the whole year, or just through?
No, just through February.
Well, so it still would be.
Next month, it'll be higher, you know, every month, it looks at that month,
Right.
at that time each
If
year.
we've gone in 14 from 411,000 to 762,000
That's what I was.
in 18-19. I mean, $350,000 increase in professional substitutes over a 5-year period.
And that's right around the time that the incentive went away for,
Yeah, it wasn't that long
for
ago.
new hires.
Yeah, a lot of that, in my opinion, is on the state. You know, when they changed the retirement system, people didn't have a reason to keep those days.
Either insurance or.
Yeah, maybe year service or insurance, and, yeah, they, you know, I'm one of many, but I think they ought to fix that.
Well, everybody, I mean, that's just a comment, that's why I was curious about that. I assumed it would be, yes, sir?
The oils and lubricants, 65,000
What
this,
page are you on?
page 19,
Okay.
65,000 this year, but about 45,000 for the previous 5 years combined. I'm sure there's an explanation,
Yeah, I would say that somebody's coded,
something.
process wrong.
Okay.
Or else we're using a lot of.
Yeah, something.
What's happened is somebody's coded diesel,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, the diesel's down.
diesel, because if you look at the diesel, how much lower it is, so
Okay.
I'll look at that.
All right.
Yeah, there's probably something.
I'm glad you pointed that stuff out, so I need to fix that before year ends anyway.
A trade-off there somewhere.
But it's probably with diesel. Of course, we did just buy some gas buses, so
Oh,
I don't think
I
that's,
see it.
See, it goes in the exact opposite direction.
Going the other direction.
Yes, maybe there's-
and our gas prices, fuel prices have stayed a little bit lower, so that's another reason why diesel would be down. But I guarantee you, if I go back and I pull the oils and lubricants object code, which is like, it's 669, I think. We'll look at that and there'll be something coded on.
Ray, with the subs, we have 9 or 10 positions. We've had long-term subs in all year. That would factor into that too.
That does. If you've got somebody that's gonna be off long-term,
We're getting money for a full-time teacher, but we can't find one certified, so we have probably 9 or 10 vacant positions. We've had subs in. So that could inflate that some too.
It still shows us also the fact that we're having to pay more locally, right?
yeah, because we're not gonna get the funding for those positions.
The incentive that was in the omnibus bill, $1,000. Now, I've been told that that's going to come back again with a special session. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Oh, you mean,
If it's 4 or less days, employees absent, don't receive it.
those that don't miss anyway, at least they get rewarded.
Well, and we've had this conversation, and years ago, somebody did some research, and some of the counties had offered that incentive, $2,000 if you don't miss it, or you only miss 3 days or something like that. What you find is that you're paying $2,000 that people weren't gonna miss anyways, because everybody else still missed.
So it's a reward for them. But I mean, we kicked that around, I'm sure Greg remembers that. We didn't do that, but some counties did. Because some chronic absentees, it's not gonna change their behavior, unfortunately. But it is a reward for those that have good attendance, but it's not gonna make those other people come, I don't think.
I was at a meeting the week before last, superintendents, and someone in that group spoke about this year's attempt in their county for such a reward system for, for their employees, and they're already in the hole. I mean, it didn't work, it's long.
It's never worked, but it was tried then.
No, we tried that once years ago, it didn't work.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's not gonna do it. I don't know what would do it.
I don't think we have the solution.
Maybe a punitive action of some
I think
kind.
the state has the solution.
And the incentive
Well,
to use the
incentive would
days,
help,
it was too expensive. I don't think it's even going to be an option.
The incentive for what now?
To be able to use your bank, those days that you accumulate over your career, to purchase additional service credit or health insurance.
I can see where they would be reluctant with health insurance because it costs, it increases so constantly. But you would think there'd be a trade-off there with years of experience. But anyway,
I have a couple of questions over on page 20, right?
Okay.
Maybe you can,
I can answer them, I will.
well, I'm sure you can, it's better than me. About halfway down the page, is the professional subs column.
Okay?
And for this year, it shows 16,000. Last year, 86,000. The year before, 55,000. The year prior to that, 16,000. How is this category of professional subs different than the one we looked at earlier?
Well, what can happen when you're looking at Fund 61, those people could be Title I teachers one year, and then they could be in the classroom the next. They can move in and out of those grants. So if we're paying
Okay,
somebody
so
out
this
Title
is-
I or Title I more or less, or special ed, and what happened,
I see that, it's coming from a,
Yes.
and that answers my other question, because I had a question about why there was nothing on student drug testing, but just nothing coming from this fund. It's somewhere else in here that is paid for. Okay.
and a couple years ago, we moved a lot of people out of Fund 61 and put them in the county code just to be able to bill Medicaid a little bit more lucratively, I guess you could say. So, yeah, Fund 61, it can move, those teachers, they can move. Somebody gets a little seniority and they move into a classroom, or they, vice versa, they can move into Title I, out of Title I, away for special ed into a county position, so that can fluctuate.
That also, Mr. Baker, when we had some federal folks, Title I folks, that we had a couple that were ill, that 1 year was increased, so we used that money so it wouldn't come back on the county.
Okay. I didn't appreciate that was showing a separate fund. Once you said, well, this is coming out of Fund 61, all makes sense to me.
Good.
which is an accomplishment for me to understand numbers, so.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions, Mr. Allen?
I'll tell you this.
Go ahead.
Well, you were there, the audit's done, everything pretty much went okay. We're gonna change a few things in the way we're doing it. But I think was there 2 findings and a couple of others?
One finding.
Yeah, but that was kinda on purpose. I knew what I was doing when we were gonna get that finding, so, that was over the GASB 75. We
And a warning.
saved $22,000 this year.
A couple of warnings.
Yeah, a couple warnings not to do it again. I'm already fixing one of those, and I'll bid out the services for, the actuary services. And, I tried to call your contacts, and I couldn't get anybody to respond back.
Never got an answer.
One guy retired, another lady, she was the VP of the company, she didn't call back, and it was about that time, I think I might have went to Mr. Meek, I said, hey, listen, I saw the look on people's faces about the $22,000, let's just save it, we'll eat it next year, we'll be good. And of course, before I said that, I talked to the auditor, I said, what really happens if we don't spend this money up? A couple of different people said, nothing. I was like, okay, I'll save the money.
He didn't like our reasoning that the excess levy made it move, did he?
Well, we looked at that in the very beginning part. I mean, it was ridiculous. We spend $130,000 on that every year, and we're going to spend nearly $25,000 just to get a number that nobody here cares for. That's a number that's, like I call monopoly money, it's not real money. That's exactly what that number was going to give you. A number that, if the excess levy goes away in 5 years, it means nothing.
So that's what I mean, that's what doesn't make the budget logical to me. If you don't have an excess levy that includes that item, then you don't need an actuary. I can figure it out, it's going to be nothing.
Yeah, we're on the same page. We can all figure that one out.
She shot that down.
So everything, for the most part, I think went well. And you two, you were there, you can comment. It went pretty smooth, the women in that office, of course, Darlene just retired, and Amy's replaced her, but they were there for so long. One of the things that I didn't want to do whenever I came in was change a bunch of stuff, because it was working. When I took this job, Jody Lucas, I think I've mentioned this before, he said, hey, Ray, he said, this is a really good job, but your job is really not to mess it up. So I kind of took that advice, and I didn't change a whole lot of stuff. And, Trina and Robin and Darlene, they'd been there for so long. They knew the processes. They taught me a lot of those processes, how they do, because they did stuff different than we did in Logan. And our audits always went well in Logan in the finance part. You can laugh at the news and all that stuff and what's happened, but for the most part, everything that we did in that finance office was really good, but it was done totally different than the way that the system was here. So I tried to adapt to that because they knew it. There was no need for me to come in and change a bunch of stuff. So Trina and Robin and Darlene, they taught me, now we're in the process of teaching Amy how that stuff works. So, auditor comes in the door, first thing you do is confess your sins. I know I did this wrong, and they'll either, most of the time they'll help you correct that with a little note in a management letter or something like that, or they found something and I said, listen, just write it up, we'll learn from it. And they didn't write it up, they just put it in a management letter, and it was something simple. But sometimes if you can get that write-up, it's a finding, it's not the end of the world, but now you can use that as an example to do stuff the right way. So I've always had that philosophy, and it's worked for this. So, and I think that's it.
Okay, no one has anything else to say, then we'll move on. Thanks, Ray, appreciate it. Let's go to the administrative section, please. Do I have a motion? Rowdy?
Second.
Fred seconded that motion. Mickey?
Okay, item A is out-of-state travel for the following employee. Item B, school volunteers who on occasion may also serve as bus chaperones for athletic events, academic competitions, or school outings, and have completed volunteer orientation. Item C is to award a contract to Republic Services for trash removal at all schools and the central office complex according to the bid received. Now, I believe Mr. Gosney told me that we have saved an additional $4,000 a year with this most recent bid and contract.
59,000.
So that's pretty significant savings by going over a 3-year period.
So it is the 3 year, okay.
Item D, approval of the 2019-2020 school calendar as recommended by the county calendar committee. Item E, according to the provision of county policy 8210, school calendar, and the West Virginia Code 18-5-45, the following revisions to the 2018-2019 school calendar are approved as a result of the school cancellation for extreme weather conditions. So we were out March the 6th and March the 8th for inclement weather. I'm recommending that we make up March the 6th on April 22nd. That is a professional meeting day. It's on a Monday right after spring break. So that's a day that the teachers would have reported and the students would stay home. And then June the 4th would be the makeup date for March the 8th, which is an OS day. And that still leaves us an OS day if we would happen to have to close school one more time.
One day.
Right. So we still have that one in our pocket if we need it. Possibly we won't need it. Item F, Marshall University student Thomas Cooper to complete a 15-hour clinical at Lee County High School. Item G, out-of-state trip for Harts PK 8th grade students to Mason, Ohio, May 31st, 2019. And item H, out-of-county student transfer for the 2018-2019 school year.
Okay. For the most part, self-explanatory. Does anyone have any questions? All right, if there aren't any, is it all yes on this item?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So the OS day, that just pushes the,
The P day
Goes one forward.
over one.
gotcha.
Right.
So they'll finish June 2nd now.
Right.
Gotcha.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's part of our math committee too.
Well, this is it.
I could see why. Okay, finance, have a motion, please.
So moved.